thank you for your consideration and listening to my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
The second individual that has been identified and signed up to speak is Ms. Yolanda Sanders. Ms. Sanders?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Yolanda Sanders. I'm a recent retiree, 33 years with the city of Dayton. 33 years with the city of Dayton. I too am a graduate from Dayton Public School, Patterson High School. And I just wanted to say that endorsing candidates can help the candidates that don't have a large network, or that don't have a large, don't have a lot of financial. So that's all I want to say. I think it's very important for us to endorse the candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. The third speaker, as according to the list, will be Ms. Valerie Duncan.
Okay, my name's Valerie Duncan. I just have a series of questions. I don't have anything planned, as far as protocol.
Use the microphone, please.
A presentation, so I don't have that. Okay. So one of the things that I am concerned about is that, that we see a draft of the constitutional bylaws, before, there's a vote. I understand that there's gonna be people out there that are gonna do a first and second, on the different sections. But I think we, as the, party members should be privileged to see those drafts. Now, if the drafts change and everything, well, that's great, but we should see them. Now, as far as the screening committees goes, that's been an issue on all sorts of fronts. But I think that to encourage members to run, to get the backing of the party, then you have those people. It's a consistency of cohesion for the party. Now, as far as the other parts, the screening committee, I think that should be broken up. If you're going to have judges, candidates for judges, you should have people that can screen people that are knowledgeable of that particular court, and not just one kind of general people that really don't have any experience with any of those courts or judiciary. Right now, I don't know how the screening committee is exactly chosen, but it seems like it's the same people for whatever position. And but that's all I really have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Fourth designated speaker will be Ms. Marcia Knox.
Hi, I'm Marcia. Pleased to be here tonight to speak briefly to the committee. I've been in Dayton over 45 years. My kids are products of Dayton Public Schools. I used to work for the city of Dayton once upon a time. I worked for Frigidaire. I've been on jobs where I wasn't treated right. And I decided one day to join a union. And that changed my life. And I began to be able to take care of my kids in the fashion that I needed to. I had health care, you know, and all that kind of thing, those things count to young folks trying to make it with their kids. And to make a long story short, I'm gonna get straight to the point, that when I don't even need, this mic is not even on, is it? Yeah. I just don't think Okay. When we are endorsing candidates, we have to ensure that these candidates understand that and believe in the working families and will fight for labor rights for folks. You know, we've come a long way, but we have a further way to go. And I just hope that the committee takes all those types of things into consideration when fulfilling your duties as a committee. That's it.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Thomas. Fifth speaker is going to be Mr. Carlos Buford.
How you all doing? My name is Carlos Buford. I just want to let you all know I do voter registrations throughout the city of Dayton. And during the last election, when those mailers went out, when it came to Shanice and Fairchild, what I want to say to that, as far as my testimony, as far as what I have seen, these are things that we do not need in the party. Those were 4 individuals, were great individuals. But at the end of the day, they were not together. Because at the end of the day, those voters that supported the ones that did not get through, they stayed at home. Our candidates barely made it through. And I'm saying, as far as when it comes to the vote, we need to look at Article 5. When it comes to endorsements, we need to go ahead and revamp that to where maybe the party can stay out of those local elections and or leave the primaries alone. Yeah. Let the people decide, and then the party comes after that. Again, we want to combine these votes as one. We are a party. I've been with this party for 3 decades. I think that even with Shanice, my sister Stacy, Sliver, and also Fairchild, they have decades of being in this party. All members should be supported when they make it through the primaries. If we cannot do that, we're not a party, we're a club. That's all I want to say, thank you.
Thank you for your remarks, Mr. Buford. Next speaker will be Mr. Grady Mullins.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Grady Mullins. I'm the Executive Director of Dayton Building Trade. One issue that I wanted to bring about is the fact that the union I belong to, the IBEW, we have a constitution nationally and every local has their bylaws. And I would say in that instance, have we checked with other county commission or Democratic parties, see what their bylaws look like, what the state bylaws look like, and what the national bylaws look like before we do anything? We should cover all the bases on that so that we get this right this time. And the other thing is the point about people running for office. You know, as a union leader, my members are looking for people who will support working people. Whether you've got a union ticket in your pocket or not, you deserve to make a living wage with benefits and be able to feed your family, buy a house, or rent a house. And that's what the candidates that we need to select need to support. We have enough lip service in Columbus right now on stuff, so that leaves it up to the Democratic Party, the people we pick, to do the best for the citizens of Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins. Next speaker is going to be Peter McClendon.
Peter McClendon. I'm the Regional Director for the Dayton office for Roscommon Council 8. I am new to the Dayton area, but I'm well involved with Democratic politics. Former Treasurer of Hamilton County Democratic Party, and I'm also very involved in the Warren County Party. So I appreciate your service and everything you guys are doing. From an outside perspective, I would just like to see more unity. The party fights we're having, it's not unique. It's going on all throughout the state, in different parties throughout the country. But we all have to remember we're all Democrats, and we have more in common, and we share more common values than what divides us. So I thank you for your service, and I look forward to working with the party and electing more Democrats, not just locally, but also statewide and federally. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Annie Kuzma.
Hello, my name is Annie Kuzma. I am an elected precinct captain. I was just wanting to bring up what Carlos was talking about too, not endorsing people during the primaries. It's not fair to any of the candidates at all. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, I've been a volunteer for many organizations for years. And as Mr. McClendon just talked about, we needed party unity, and that's treating each other with kindness and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be David Owens.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity here. David Owens, I am the Riverside I precinct captain, and I am the precinct captain-elect for Riverside O, so I was one of those precincts that was involved in re-precincting. So I would like, I'm not going to go too hard into this. I would like to suggest that possibly we move our meeting dates to Saturday mornings, especially during election season. That gets us down here as a group. And then after our meetings, we have walkers who are available for any of the campaigns out there. It makes it easier sometimes for families to be able to schedule because during the week, lots of times you are running the kids from point A to point B, after school activities and such. You're leaving the downtown area if you work downtown, going back to the suburbs, and then commuting back here in the middle of the week. I think Saturday would be a nice meeting time. Again, it would be beneficial to the campaigns. That's what we're here to do. We're here to elect Democrats. And then I've got a couple of things that are also to elect Democrats. Possibly having every elected official from the local school board in Mad River to the local school board in Valley View to the township trustees in Jackson Township, places where we don't ever have people running. We need to give them a bone. You know, if you run for a school board and you win, you should be able to attend or be a member of the executive committee, as long as you are a registered Democrat. I've gone out there, I've collected signatures, I've turned in good petitions, and I won a seat on the school board. I should be allowed to, as a Democrat, and I'm registered and voting in Democratic primaries, I should be allowed to be a member of the executive committee as a bonus for being a Democrat to go out there and get elected. And then one last note, I'm sure everybody enjoyed the petition process. However, I myself, being at the board, do not particularly enjoy it because we're having to check everybody's signatures. There is a process for the central committees to do a form. This would put your name on the ballot. By not petitioning, it could get more people participating in the process. As I was caught up in the precinct changes. I had gone out in November and collected my signatures in my Riverside I precinct.
Your time is still out.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, and keep in mind the third rule of the rules of conduct listening session protocol allows you to submit testimony in writing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is going to be Mike Bock.
My leg is going to sleep.
And your glasses.
Thanks. I was on the committee 4 years ago, and so part of what's in your Constitution today, I'm hoping you'll consider as keeping. 4 years ago, when we looked at the Constitution really was not the Constitution for the Montgomery County Democratic Party. If you look back what the title of that was, it was a Constitution for the Central Committee. And if you look at the Constitution today, it's all based on the Central Committee. The Montgomery County Democratic Party as an organization really doesn't exist. We have people that will sign up and become members, and basically just a list of donors. They really have no say in the party. And I think that's something that we need to look at. So two things that we did differently that was approved by the reorganization meeting. It was also at that time the committee for the Constitution Committee recommended this. We had a new preamble. Previous to 4 years ago, there was no preamble in the Constitution. We had a statement of purpose that was not in previously. And so I'm hoping that you don't just throw those away, but you look at them. They're very aspirational. They're saying, who are we as a party? Who are we as an organization? What should we be searching to do? The preamble says that we want to form a strong party organization that empowers representative democracy within our party and throughout the county. That's very aspirational. We never really did that. But how do we come up with a constitution that would more thoroughly do that is the question. Our statement of purpose we put in there that advances the purpose of connecting the Montgomery County Democratic parties with an extended community where every member has a voice. So we have like 38,000 Democrats registered in the county, and even if this central committee was actually completely filled, that'd be like 382 people. It'd be less than 1%. We need to have a vision of a party that it actually involves and engages Democrats who want to be involved in a meaningful way, not just to be donors, not just to give money, not just to pass out literature, but to actually have a voice in the party. And that was what the aspirational is what we were saying in the document that we did 4 years ago. So I hope you'll look at that and brainstorm how that can be. And I'm going to send you some information. I'm going to suggest that. I think we need to actually create the Montgomery County Democratic Party as an organization. Right now, the whole organization is based upon the Central Committee. If you look right now, we never elect the chairman of the Montgomery County Democratic Party. We elect the chairman of the Central Committee, and that person by tradition then becomes called the chairman of the Montgomery County Democratic Party. But right now, we don't really have an organization. Someone wants to join, they really have no say. Our Constitution we read 4 years ago was aspirational. We knew that we weren't meeting it in that Constitution. It was something that we need to strive for, something to do. We need to have a party that really engages Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bock. Next speaker will be Mr. Carl Keith.
Good evening, and thank you for your service and for taking the time to hear from all of us. It's very important work, and we appreciate what you're doing. I'm Carl Keith. I'm the Montgomery County Auditor, and I'm a resident of Dayton Ward 8A over in Belmont. As most of you know, I've been active in the Democratic Party for well in excess of 40 years, run for office, a number of different offices, and will be running for re-election as county auditor for my 7th term as county auditor this November. But I've also served this party in a number of capacities. I've been the vice chair for communications. I've been the vice chair for finance. I've been the executive committee vice chair at one point. So I've served in a number of different capacities, and it's very important. I've invested a lot of time and effort and energy into this party, and so it's very important for me that the party remain a vibrant, strong advocate for democratic principles and democratic values. One of the things I think that we have to do and have to recognize is the party, as Central Committee, has statutory as well as traditional duties that we are engaged to perform, and the Constitution has to reflect that, I think. And of course, one of our most important responsibilities is to identify and recruit candidates for office that will support our values and support democratic principles, because that's how we get things done. And it's all about getting things done. And so I'm here to support the continuation of the endorsement process. I think it's important that we have that. It's an important tool when it comes to recruiting and identifying candidates for the future. And I think it's a leadership issue. We've been elected leaders of the Democratic Party. When voters have elected us to the Central Committee, they've elected us to serve as leaders of the party. And I think they expect us to show leadership when it comes to who are viable candidates that will represent our party. And you know, these are tough decisions. And I realize that. They're always tough decisions. They've always been tough decisions. But you know, we're elected to make tough decisions. If there's a vacancy in office, we have to elect to fill that vacancy. If there's a vacancy as a candidate for office, we have to elect that person. And so that's just a statutory responsibility that our party has. And I think it's important that we continue to do that in order to maintain a strong party. Plus, if we don't do it, if there's a void, a leadership void, there will always be organizations and other officials and elected officials who will step forward and who will endorse candidates and fill that void. And as their influence will increase, our influence will decline. And I don't think that's in anyone's best interest, and I don't think it's in the Democratic Party's best interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. Next speaker will be Mr. David Ezerati.
David Ezerati, candidate for Congress. That this party thinks that it can endorse and choose candidates any better than the people of this county is embarrassing. You have yet to come within 12 points of Mike Turner. You didn't run a candidate against the sheriff. Our prosecutor breaks as many laws and he's on our side, as he may enforces. Our job is one job and one job only, and that is to beat Republicans and win elections. It's not about the bureaucracy of running this party. It's about engaging people and bringing them in. At best, I've seen 200 people at one of these meetings. We used to have 560 precincts, now we're down to 380. You don't ever see a quorum anywhere close to that. What you see is people who work for elected officials who are told to be here so they can vote to support the party elite. That has to stop. We need to make meetings that people want to come to, where they learn things, where they meet people like John Fetterman, or they meet AOC, or they meet somebody that has some insight that'll teach them how to be a better Democrat and how to win elections. We need to work on visions for Montgomery County that make sense for voters and be the party of right, not the right, but of right. As in, we don't need school districts that have with a treasurer and a superintendent with 400 students. That's an elementary school, people. We have overhead in this county that's ridiculous. Cities with 6,000 people and electing mayors and having public works departments. We've got overlap and websites and everything, all kinds of stuff that leads to a high tax base. And that's why Republicans are kicking our asses. At some point, you have to wake up and build a system that gets people elected and that people understand what they're voting for. We don't need two bodies. We don't need an executive committee and a central committee. We don't need a screening committee. We have 20 people show up tops. They can do those things, but the committees aren't the thing. We need voting that isn't set up by raising your hand where everyone can see and your party bosses are watching. There are electronic ways to do this and record the votes and publish them. We need a website that tells people what's going on. We need to have technology to give to candidates so that they can get a jump on how to run for office and win. We need to stop being so insider-oriented and be community-oriented. And we need goals and objectives. I will distribute this to anybody here. I only have 30 copies. You can get it online. Hopefully you'll distribute everything that comes online. Thank you very much. And I hope we start winning elections in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Rodney. Next speaker will be Charles Kay. Is there a Charles Kay present? Very well. The next speaker will be Mr. Jared Green.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here for primarily one reason, and that is to urge you guys to make the Democratic Party, big D, more democratic, small d. Mr. Keith made some very, very compelling points, and I agree with the role that leaders have with any particular party or any particular body, and they do have to make tough decisions. But in the past, it doesn't seem like we follow our own rules. We've been able to not only guess, but almost predict with pinpoint accuracy who the party would predict. And that's because for too long, we've operated as a club as opposed to a larger, more democratic party. And if we want to engage the larger population, we have to start acting on those principles and become more democratic and find ways and find mechanisms to bring in people in and listen to their voices so that they have a say in the decisions that this party makes. As we know, voter turnout is abysmal, and we have to look at ourselves and figure out why that is. What is it that we're doing that doesn't encourage people to come out and participate in the process? And maybe that's because they have a sense that we are not as democratic as we say we are. So I do urge that we become more democratic. I understand Mr. Foley, but I also understand Mr. Asirati's and Mr. Buford's point of maybe reconsidering not having a committee. And the last thing I would say is, let's be clear on what democratic values are, right? Even if we are going to endorse, who are we endorsing? What do they stand for? There are several issues that impact people all around this country. We're talking about abortion, we're talking about gun rights, we're talking about workers' rights, and we're talking about LGBTQIA plus rights. All of these things are in grave jeopardy right now, and if we don't endorse candidates or support candidates who have clear stances on these issues, we will continue to lose to the Republicans, as Mr. Asirati said. So again, make sure we know what these democratic values are, and make sure the Democratic Party becomes more democratic, small d. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandy. Next speaker is going to be Elizabeth Elliott.
Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Elliott, and I'm a Dayton resident and a mother of two that...
Microphone,
Could you
please.
speak up, please? Oh, golly. Can you hear me better?
Speak up.
Speak up?
Yep.
I'll be happy to speak up. My name's Elizabeth Elliott. I'm a resident of Dayton and a mother of two that live here in the city. They were Dayton Public Schools students. I support the Dayton Public Schools. But tonight I'm here to tell you folks that the community cares about our endorsements and it matters. Thank you very much. You have a good evening. Did y'all hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott.
Something we really, really need is a statement of core values that separates us from Republicans, because right now it's a little vague. And we need a system of discipline for elected members who violate that. So we need dedication, things like, we can talk about what those details would be, but things like a dedication to unions, so no union busting. Get rid of nepotism. Public schools over charter schools. Definitely support for LGBTQIA, and no more anti-abortion members at all. It's something that's very shocking me that we have elected commissioner and members of Central Committee that support those anti-science, anti-human rights viewpoints that frankly belong on the other side, and they need to find the door. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Next speaker will be Scotty Thompson.
I'm Scott Thomason. I'm precinct captain of Trotwood 4B. I think it is our most important function to screen and tell people that we endorse candidates. This gives the party the opportunity to ask hard questions on issues that matter to us as a party and ensure that we share our common values and beliefs. And I think when we have a screening committee, those individuals are there to ask those hard questions. And I think the one thing that everyone has to remember is the screening committee only makes a recommendation, but the central committee either adopts or rejects the recommendation. So I think the endorsement process is something that we need to keep.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next presenter will be Zach Joseph.
Good afternoon. It's nice to finally see a lot of you in person for the first time. I'm confused, really am, because we hear a lot about needing to keep the endorsement process. And if I want to keep something, there has to have value to it. I have a pair of shoes in my house, it's sentimental, they still work. Look at the last election. I wasn't endorsed, I didn't need it. But the candidate that you endorsed in my unopposed or uncontested race came below me in votes. The two big races, candidates that we put up for Dayton City Commission, they lost. If you go down the line of who the party endorsed and who won the election, for last year at least, it looks like the endorsement almost was an hindrance to those candidates more than it benefited them. So I don't see much in the point of keeping something that has no intrinsic value. Better yet, the party should approve candidates and let the voters decide who they want to vote for in a competitive primary or a competitive general election where there's two Democrats on the ballot. Also, to the point of the executive committee, if you go to the meetings or listen to the meetings, the executive committee talks, and then the central committee comes in and it's repetitive. Same things get talked about, same things get voted on, and I don't see the point in continuing that. It has this kind of sentiment of like an old boys club. I think that's kind of the shared feeling that a lot of us have. And we have an issue with engaging Democrats in the county. There's no reason why the state Senate 6th should be Naraj and Connie. We have the votes, we just don't have the engagement to bring those voters out to the polls. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Next speaker is going to be Mr. David Madden.
I think I can speak in my loudest military voice and everybody can hear me. I moved to Dayton 4 years ago to take care of my grandchildren. I've been a Democrat all of my life. I spent 32 years in the military and I spent 40 years as a trial lawyer trying cases throughout the country in state and federal courts. There should not be anybody endorsing candidates in primaries. I share the sentiments of the last speaker that I have been in this party for 4 years, and most of the meetings I've been to have been lectures which have not resulted in any meaningful action. If you have a committee that puts the thumb on a candidate, and that committee brings that thumb to this meeting, what do you think the meeting's going to do? I don't understand how that process works. I asked the leaders of the party what the difference was in the candidates in a recent election, and they couldn't tell me. I've been told by other members of the party there are cliques and factions within this party, and I've observed those cliques and factions. I've had people outright lie to my face about things. There are too many cliques and factions in this party for it to be of any use to any Democrat in this county. I supported Jacqueline Gaines. There ought to be an ethical consideration of the candidates with regard to the way they conduct their campaigns. We dealt with the opposition calling a non-lawyer within the committee and threatening an ethics claim. I was quite frankly hoping she would go forward with that. I was looking forward to cross-examining her after that complaint had been filed. But that's the status of this party. Nobody knows who's in charge. There's a few who think they do, and it seems that small minority is running the rest of it. And there are other factions who have other ideas about how this ought to be run. There doesn't seem to be any unity. We're going to lose the right to vote. We're going to lose abortion. We're going to lose a whole host of other issues that have been long fought for. This party does not stand up and talk about the things that need to be talked about. They don't talk about gay issues. I write occasionally for the Dayton newspaper and send them articles. I've never seen anybody in this party leadership do that. It may be on Facebook, but you're talking to yourself if you're doing it on Facebook. The point that I'm trying to make is this party needs to get unified or it's going to be gone. And you can forget the elections in November. The Republicans are not going to be as nice to you as your fellow Democrats. Thank you very much.
Yeah!
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Next speaker will be Zach Zugilder.
Thank you, Mr. Reporter. A lot of conversation has been had about endorsements, but I'd like to encourage those of you who are here to listen to the people who had to answer the phones when we didn't endorse in our most recent congressional race. I sat here day after day hearing from voters crying out and wanting our attention. They want to know who we support. In that election, there was an 18% undervote in the congressional election, in the election that we did not endorse. Those voters chose to skip the election, chose not to engage with our candidates, and chose to stay out of it. We need this endorsement. While many of you in here might not trust the party, there are hundreds, if not thousands of voters across Montgomery County who do, and are looking for us to ask these questions of our candidates, and who want to hear from our candidates, and want to hear that, yes, we approve this candidate, yes, this is the candidate we endorse. This is the candidate we want to take on to November, and we want to support. And so I would urge this party to continue to keep the endorsement process involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zugilder. Next speaker will be Ms. Renee Shepard.
I would like for the party to get more unity, and we're very divided. And the Republicans is taking advantage of this division that's within the party, and they're supporting the candidate that don't have the endorsement more so. So I wish there would be some unity, and we could work out some of these kinks and why there's so much division. And I have campaigned for the Democrats since John Kennedy, and one of the greatest things I have seen is the union support. And I'm concerned because a lot of Republicans do not like unions. And I want to make sure that we keep a party that's alive and well. And I'm thanking God for all the African American elected officials, because when I was marching with King, when I was a little girl, and then they passed the Voting Rights Act, I'm happy with all these elected officials, and we have a governor in my home state of Michigan, and I'm hoping for a governor. That's what we fought for. For gender, you can be not discriminated because you're a woman. So I'm hoping we can get a woman elected as governor in Ohio also.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. We'll now hear from Don Tindall.
Thank you. My name is Dawn Tindall, and I'm representing Dayton 10E, where I will be after the elections are certified. I've heard a lot of anger and a lot of confusion about what's going on with the party, and I understand that. I really do. I am someone who was involved in the party significantly until, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and it kind of just fell out. And I hear people wanting changes, mostly about how we endorse, whether we endorse, and when. Personally, I think the sooner you can endorse the candidate, the better of a chance that candidate has to win. We're right to think that other people rely on the screening that the Democratic Party does. These are processes, the screening committee, then making a recommendation to exec, then makes a recommendation to central, is a process that we put in place, I'm guessing, because we had trouble endorsing regardless. And I appreciate new ideas towards endorsing. I am completely open to them. But I would like to just ask everyone to step back and think about whether any of the anger is actually about the process as you would read it, or whether it's situational. We have all had, be it a club, an organization, or even any interpersonal relationships can go bad because of situational problems. That doesn't necessarily mean the system is broken. I am somewhat confused by the idea of going through a complete constitutional rewrite at the same time that we're doing a reorganization, as we're about to adopt new party leadership. And quite honestly, I don't know who that's going to be. I would like to see us actually wait to make some of these changes until we've had a time to see who our new party is going to be, and we could then work with them to make changes needed. I know there are changes needed. The party isn't perfect. This party, no organization, no group of friends is perfect. So it's all about how we can stand together, be unified, and get out and actually do more work. I was at the women's rally this weekend. It would have been great to see a table for the Democratic Party. And you know what? I could have thought of it, and I could have asked, and I could have set up that table, and I didn't think of it. But these are things that would help us engage more with our community. A lot of the things we're talking about, as far as who we endorse, when we endorse, those are all kind of very much inside. And while people do want us to endorse the best candidates, including me, I'd like for us to endorse the best candidates, I would just like everyone to proceed with a little thought on the process as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tindall. As of this moment, I have no other knowledge of anyone that has signed up to speak at today's meeting. I do know we still have some time that's reflected in the event that is billed. I want to take a moment to hear from individuals in the community that have not signed up to speak. I do see one over here. I do see one individual that's identified. I want to start with her. Okay, I'll get to you as well. Mayor, you take the podium.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I think what you're doing is very admirable and very important work, and that's listening to the concerns that people have regarding the party. I have always been a Democrat. However, I have been labeled Republican, labeled any number of other things, simply because I serve in a nonpartisan capacity in my city. I want to speak about how the party itself gets involved in elections like in my city, where there are 24,000 individuals, 16,000 people that are elected voters, but just in this last election, less than 3,000 people are showing up to vote. The last election that I was in, less than 4,000 people showed up to vote. And I think one of the challenges is having the party get involved when almost everybody in the race is a Democrat. And people are fighting each other, fighting against friends, fighting against neighbors, and people are just choosing not to show up. I would like the party to consider staying out of those kind of races and allowing the best person to win, because again, it is very important for people to have knowledge, but when you're talking about us fighting each other, that's a bad thing. One of the things that I endured was everything that Shanice Turner endured by the party. There was a rag put out in the community against me. I was accused and made a lot of statements that were lies that came from the Democratic Party against me. Again, always been a Democrat, but I've never sought out endorsement from any of you simply because we are nonpartisan. And I wanted to do my work and honor whoever I represent, because the job of a mayor is to represent the entire community. And I've not been able to effectively work with my own party simply because I've taken that position. I've had Nan Whaley, she endorsed the person that challenged me. Sherrod Brown endorsed the person that challenged me. Carolyn Rice endorsed the person that challenged me. We are all Democrats. And if you gotta reach that high up to get somebody to come into a race like mine, I think there's something that we should be looking at there. I don't think that that's something that should be fairly done. I think, again, when you're talking about communities like mine, you tear them apart when you do things like that. And I would like the party to consider that the people in the communities, as I speak, don't feel that they can trust either party. And I think we've not done a very good job simply because of just the way that we have gone about representing. And I would just like you to consider that. I know that there are races like in Dayton where you've got to get down to who's going to be the Democrat and who's going to be the Republican. But in my community, it is not about parties.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lucy Ann McCoskey, and I'm currently the precinct captain for Washington Township CC, formerly Washington Township A, and I've been a resident of Montgomery County for more than 30 years. I've listened to all the discussion on endorsement, and there have been good points on both sides. Clearly, there is some value in some races to the endorsement process. But we have seen in recent races where it has been very divisive. So clearly, the process is flawed. And we have seen where also, not only has the process been divisive, but endorsed candidates have not won. So the process has not chosen the most electable candidate. I have never been part of the screening committee, so I don't know exactly how they go about their work, but we do know that their recommendations in several recent races have not been helpful. So I think that the party should consider modifying the endorsement process to approve multiple candidates where we have Democrats running in either a primary or a nonpartisan race, where we have Democrats running against each other, to approve those who support our democratic values, and to identify any who might be false flag candidates by a disapproval process, but limit endorsements to those races where the opposition is clearly not Democratic, and it is helpful to voters to know about the philosophies of the candidates. For instance, in judicial races, where there are no partisan labels on the ballot, and candidates often don't have a lot of information. The party endorsement is very helpful there. In the general election. In the primary, perhaps not so much. So I think that I would like to see the Constitution and the Central Committee work on changing the endorsement process to be less divisive, to avoid endorsing candidates before the filing deadline, before we know who all the candidates are, and to consider approving multiple candidates in races where all of the candidates are well qualified and support democratic values. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks. I think she had her hand up, and I'll get to you, Ms. Martin.
My name is Pam Perlman, and with my fingers crossed, I will be the precinct captain for Washington J. And, I'm sorry.
You have to speak up.
All right. Just, my mind tends to wander, so while I was sitting here, I came up with an idea that you might want to incorporate. One of the problems that we have is that other Democrats in the county don't know what the heck's going on. They know what they've seen on TV, they know what they've seen on Channel 7 or Channel 2, but they really, if they watch Fox or MSNBC, then they've got one way or the other. But I think it would be really nice if there was a newsletter that went out every month to every Democrat in the county, either by email or by postage, because a lot of people still do not have internet, just with, okay, here's some things that we're doing. Here's the news from our county. Here's an update on the issues and how we feel about the issues in our county. Here's an opinion from so-and-so in our county, different representatives that are already elected. Let them write a little opinion piece. And opportunities for involvement. We're setting up a table outside of the Americana Festival. If you'd like to come and help donate your time, we'll be there. T-shirts and sweatshirts and things that have our logo on them, so that when we are somewhere, people see us as a group doing some good. But I would really like to communicate, before I got involved, this involved with the party, and I have to thank Mr. Orange for that, because he drove me off the edge and I had to get involved. But, no, not ginger, I said orange, it's the orange fix. But I really didn't know any of this was ever going on, and I've been a Democrat my whole life, and I didn't know any of this was going on. And it wasn't because I wasn't involved. I watch the news, I read the newspaper, I read the Washington Post, I read all the time. But I didn't know what was going on here. And as I went around and talked to people in the precinct, they don't know what's going on here either. And so I think there should be a way to get people that normally don't get involved this deeply to know what's going on and have the opportunity to get involved and be more rah-rah about the party. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Randy Reed. Miamisburg. I have no dog in the fight. I've been listening to both sides on the nomination, the promotion of the candidates. And it kind of hit me, this last U.S. rep primary that we had, I know one of the guys. He's borderline insane. He spent $10. He joined and ran as a win. It was a joke. He got 3,500 votes. I know you don't like promoting candidates, but had you not been promoted, you probably wouldn't have won. I don't know who voted for this guy. So I do see the value of a screening committee. I think we should have one. We should be looking at these people. I think there has to be an improvement, like it's been mentioned, on where it goes from there. It can't be in the back room. Maybe there's a meet the candidate night where we all come in, meet, they get up to speak, we do things like that. There's got to be a little bit more openness about how this goes. I can see the value in it. And I'm probably voting here for, just a better process in how we do this. I know I agree with a lot of the other people on how this went the last time. It left a really bad taste in some of the people in the primaries, how that went down. So improve the process. We do have to screen. We can't be putting some of these people out there that ran. That's right.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Good evening. I'm John Murphy. I'm ward leader in Kettering 4, and for many years I've been the president of the South Dayton Democratic Club. I'm no longer that, but I served in that capacity for many years. As far as endorsements are concerned, that's what political parties do. Okay, they endorse candidates. Okay, if we didn't endorse anybody, I don't even know why we would have a political party. The other thing I wanted to mention was primaries. A perfect example of a wonderful primary is the one that we just had for Republicans. We had about 6 or 7 clowns who had commercials against each other. Okay, it cost $80 million. And we have perfect fodder for the general election, the Democrats do, because these people tore each other apart. Okay, so we need to keep that in mind. Okay, we don't want to get into that kind of situation. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your remarks. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jan Underwood, and I wanted to concur with Randy Reed that I don't have a dog in this fight. I want an improved process. I think that our screening process has been flawed, and I agree that we need to make improvements, but I think also that we as a party need to stand for something, and we need to back the people that stand for our values. And therefore, if we need, there will be times when maybe we won't want to endorse candidates, when there are, multiple qualified candidates, but there will be times when we desperately need to endorse candidates. And I hope that we can improve on the process. One thing that I found as a member of both the executive and the screening committee was that we were never given any information about why we were voting, why certain people were approved. We were never given an opportunity to hear from candidates. We were just basically handed a slate and said, here, approve it. And so I think that that's the process that needs to be greatly improved on, to where the screening process is more democratic, and it's not, I've even had members of the screening committee tell me that they were really not given a lot of information as well, or only given the very last moment. So that's where I would like to see the endorsement process change. As far as the executive committee versus, getting rid of the executive committee, for the 4 years that I've served on the executive committee, I haven't seen any purpose in it. But if we could find a purpose for the executive committee, I don't think it needs to be eliminated. But as it is right now, it seems to have no purpose, and I would not be opposed to eliminating it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. I'm gonna go here and then I'll come back and get you.
Hi, I'm Dave Whitmiller of Vandalia. Thanks for doing this. I think it's really great. And I've been living here for about 2 years, and this is one of the first things that I saw involving politics here. And I thought it was the process of endorsing primary candidates before the primary election was so self-evidently the wrong thing to do. The whole notion of people putting fingers and tipping scales in the directions of one candidate or another is something that people push back against a lot. It's some of the reasons why other candidates won recent elections. And when we do this here, it really disengages voters. And we're losing kind of badly because of it. We're not even winning across all areas of government, and if we were, that would be, I still want to make it right, but it's even doubly worse than that's the case right now. So I think what we'll see if we change this is more engagement from folks, better buy-in from folks, more engagement from folks who are just kind of coming into the area, a renewal of focus, and I think it's a really important thing to do, and self-evidently, clearly the right thing to do. And I hope the committee here makes the right choice in this going forward, and I thank everyone for the time.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Benson, and I'm from Miamisburg, and I was recently elected as a precinct captain, and I was going to harken back to a couple of previous speakers about the idea of it kind of all merges together with having more transparency on candidates being presented before screening. If we had a process where we can put it out in a monthly, quarterly, whatever kind of newsletter to Democrats in our community, then the precinct captains, as the central committee voting, could hear from our constituents, have more of an opinion from them, who they like, who they want, what's important to them, if the values of the candidate meets what they're looking for. And then we can then take that back to our vote. So I think having that ability to put it out there somehow in more media or something, because I agree with Pam. There's not a lot out there for our candidates. I mean, I get it ready every morning. I turn on the TV as I'm getting ready for work, and you don't see a lot from the Democratic side. You just see from the other side, which, well, I tune out as much as possible. But as you know, now as a voting member of the Central Committee, I want to know what the people in my town want. I want to know how to vote for them. And they need to know what's out there, what's being presented to them, who's the best candidate to represent them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.
Good evening, everyone. Mike King, precinct captain for Dayton 1B. First and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this and listen to the community. I have 3 recommended changes to the current Constitution. Number 1, I do echo the previous speakers regarding the endorsements. I do believe there's a purpose for the endorsements. I mean, that is a purpose of the party. But I believe that we should re-examine the process. For example, in an open office, an open seat, I think that it is best that maybe the party decides not to endorse. I believe that in previous cases, we've seen that it's caused, divisiveness. And, we truly can't afford to splinter the party if people perceive that the party's screening committee is putting their thumb on the scales of fairness. I also think that there should be a feedback process. if the candidate is running for, say, city Dayton commissioner, that the precinct captains and the ward leaders in that city should also have some avenue to express their voices on potential endorsements. Second recommended change to the Constitution is pretty minor, but it would be combining the Issues Committee and the Involvement Committee. Out of that, I think that we should explore looking at developing different caucuses. So if you're a member of the Montgomery County Democratic Party, you can sign up for various caucuses, which what the National Party and State Party does. And also, I think we should look at clubs, like the South Dayton Democratic Club, the Northwest Club, looking at forming those clubs. So not only are you active here at the Central Committee, at the county party, but within your community, within your neighborhood, you can be a part of the party that way. And last but not least, at least I haven't been aware of the steering committee being active. I would encourage us to ensure that the next chairperson activates the steering committee on a regular basis. Again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you, Mr. King. Yes.
Hi, my name's Peggy. I answer phones for Party here in the building. What I do is I hear complaints frequently, who are endorsed, who are not endorsed. They didn't know about the election happening. It wasn't well advertised. People depend upon us to help them come to decisions. If there are screening questionnaires, the information on the screening questionnaire should be made available as a transparent process. Maybe not all of it, maybe you've got a secret sauce that you deal with, that's fine. But major issues, we all need to know what each one thinks. It might be on their website, but it would be really nice if it was in one central station. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks, Peggy. Yes.
My name is Elizabeth Weeks, and I'm a newly elected precinct captain for Kettering 4G.
Louder, please.
Sorry. And Elizabeth Weeks. I have no idea what's going on because I am just brand new to this. I did not realize there was so much involvement of getting on a ballot, how you get endorsed, what the system is, and there's so much to know, and I'm just trying to learn. But what I'm hearing is that high quality information that's readily available is really important to people like me, because I might be asked who I would recommend. And right now I have no idea. So the monthly newsletter, something that's information just to precinct captains, or also a way to direct people who might want to look on the website and how to actually find something, because that can be very difficult. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Weeks. Yes.
Hi, friends. I'm Barb Bailiff. I am a precinct captain. First I was appointed, then I got elected, then I got elected a second time. And one of the things that I do is I consider myself a conduit of information for my precinct. So I have about 200 households that I go around several times a year with information. When there's a primary coming up, I got out ahead of time, even before early voting. I carried with me absentee ballots, registration forms. I wrote a letter about how wonderful a precinct captain I am, about what I am good for, my phone number, my address, my email. And I put on there where we vote. My whole precinct uses the same polling place. It never changed, luckily, this time. I put on the different forms of information that you might use for ID if you don't have a driver's license. I put on there everything I thought a person might need to know. And I walked this around, and I got phone calls. I would be doing through my day, people would call me. Some of the questions are strange. How can I get my grandchildren to keep voting? Wanted my husband to be a rehabber for their house. Things like that, but a lot of them were, how do I get down to do early voting? What are the hours, which I had in my list? Just literally everything I could think of, and then I was available to answer questions. I wasn't planning on coming up, but I see my role as a precinct captain, gather as much information I can. If I get asked a question, I call somebody who I consider an expert and get back to that person as fast as I can. I'm constantly walking around with my dog in my precinct. I'm picking up trash. I'm looking friendly and approachable. And I feel that that is a way of me bringing the Democratic Party and its values to the people in my neighborhood.
That's all I've got.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Is there anyone else who has not had an opportunity to speak that would like the opportunity to do so? Yes, please. Yes. I thought you were pointing at me. I was giving it right back to you. Like, come on.
I do, and I don't need a microphone. I don't believe. I never had in the past. I don't think I do now. I've been a registered Democrat since 1976. I do believe. I've been a part of a screening committee before with UFCW Local 75, which I am a board member, an officer of that union. They're very vital. I have people come and ask me all the time, you know, I work with the public, I work for Kroger, been there 40 years. People ask all the time questions that if we don't ask, we don't know the answers to. If we can't screen somebody and find out what to say, who is doing things that we need done or that we believe in, I can't answer your questions. And I know that, and if it's opened up to a lot of people to ask, I asked you a question many years ago, or made a statement, and found out you were doing what I was interested in. I would never have known that had I not asked. So I do think the screening committee maybe needs to be tweaked. I don't know. You know, time goes on, life goes on, probably it does, but it's vital. People everywhere I go ask me, you know, who do you endorse? Who does the union endorse? They want to know. And if we don't have the answers, what good are we? I mean, everything needs to be worked together, and I agree with that. But we can't separate and divide. We can't do that. We just can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that home done?
What's that? I didn't realize you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you all for being here. I know it's a tremendous opportunity to speak before you. I know this is a lot of work for you guys, but I wanted to mention something, a few things that people haven't mentioned.
Use the microphone.
Sure. I'm a Muslim American. Without endorsements, people like me don't get much opportunities. Without endorsements, people who are different have a hard time getting to where a lot of you are. It's an uphill battle for a lot of us. And if without endorsements, we'll end up with a slate of, I hate to say this, a bunch of white men, because they have a lot more money than we do. They can outspend us.
I find this offensive.
Okay, sir, you can find it as offensive as you want.
Time.
Thank you, sir. The other thing I would like you guys to consider is to create an additional screening committee for judicial races. Judicial races are becoming much more important in today's world, especially with the fact that we're losing more power in Ohio. Judges are becoming much more important for us. It's where we're winning majority of our battles, not just here in the state, but on a national level. You can see Republicans have used this to their advantage with what's going on in the Supreme Court right now. Today's judges that you're going to pick can become our appeals court judges and hopefully one day our Supreme Court judges. The reality is our questionnaire hasn't been updated in over 40 years. I don't know, just, and that questionnaire needs to be updated to reflect the fact that judicial races are a little different than other races. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Patterson. I'm a precinct captain and ward leader from Dayton, Tennessee. Something that occurred to me, I hadn't planned to say anything this evening. I just wanted to come and listen. But while we were sitting here talking, I remembered something that we used to do as a party many, 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 many years ago, and that was have candidates nights, where everybody who was a potential candidate got to come, sat up on the stage, and spoke for themselves too. And I think it might be a good idea to go back to that. And I have mixed feelings about endorsements. When I first started getting involved, they were vital to me. I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have any way to find out. When I got more involved with the party, I began to see, people close up. I had a little more information. But I also know from experience that some of our endorsements have been
Republicans.
very insider oriented, I guess is how I would say it. So maybe a candidate night for us, and then expand the endorsement procedure, not just from the screening committee, but in another way. So I see the value of endorsements, but we might have to improve our method. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Is there anyone else who would like the opportunity to speak that has not been given the opportunity to approach the podium today?
If there's nobody that's going to go, can I say something?
Absolutely.
So as a member of the committee, I hadn't planned on actually saying anything. However, an unfortunate set of circumstances has arrived for me, and I have to move to Warren County. So this is my last meeting as a member of this body. So I wanted to make sure you all had a moment, as we didn't run out of time to say something. Here's what I wanted to know. Number one, there are legitimately good reasons for having the endorsement process, and that there's tons of value in that, as some of you have pointed out. People look to us for that kind of a guidance, but we have to do a really careful cost-benefit analysis. Before I do that, back to one of the things that Mary just said, you know what we don't do that we should do in addition to having a candidates night, instead of relying on the League of Women Voters or the Dayton Daily News? We should also be doing a voter guide. We should ask questions, perhaps similar to the ones in the screening process, fill them out and send them to voters so that we don't have to just let the League of Women Voters do that. But that aside, cost-benefit analysis. Keeping the endorsement process helps us educate the voters and point them in a direction in their busy lives where they do not have the time or maybe the inclination to invest what they need to learn everything about everyone. So there, I understand that, and to your point about there are reasons kind of hurting people are trying to get up in there, and we don't want those people going through the system. We want to steer the voters towards a better or more eligible candidate. So there is value in that. This was lightly touched on, but I wanted to reinforce it. Sorry, keep me honest on my time here. Where am I at? Good. The costs of doing that. This was lightly touched on, and in some of the research I've done talking to people to prepare for this meeting, there's a fracture in the party generally, not just our body of the Central Committee, but voters that will not come out or support who we endorse because of this notion of it being an insider and a thumb on the scale thing. So if we do keep the current, and we do continue endorsing, we have to reform how it's done so that those people that think our party is not accepting and inclusive feel like they can be a part of the decision-making process. And I think that's part of the problem now.
The thing that I'll close on is this. My mom, when I was trying to do this, Republican voter and loves Donald Trump, so I said, Mom, what do you think we should do about this? Knowing that she would have no dog in this fight. And she said, Zachary, did Barack Obama endorse in the 2020 election, arguably one of the most important elections of our lifetime, to keep Donald Trump out of office again? He did not. One of the most important elections of our lifetime, and the former president did not endorse, because it creates a fracture in the party. There is value in doing it to help educate voters, but if that is the ends we want to get to, there may be other means to achieve it. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't endorse, but keep that in mind. As we endorse, it can create a problem.
Thank you for your comments. Be the last call. Is there anyone else who has not had the opportunity to speak that would like the opportunity to do so now? There does not appear to be any. I note for the record, it is 7:29 p.m. and the first listening session is hereby adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great night.